I was asked to share initially a little bit about my background, and so I'll share that. The first company I started as a freshman in college, I put my last name on T-shirts and then tried to get pro snowboarders to wear them. They couldn't because they had contracts. I had never read a contract, so I read a couple, and it said nothing about headwear. So I was like, that's cool. Maybe I can put my last name on some headbands or beanies and get these pro athletes to rock it. It doesn't, contradict the big guys' contracts. And I didn't know how to make a beanie or a hat, so I went to a 99-cent store and bought, the most ghetto headband and beanie you've ever seen in a Sharpie. Wrote my last name on it, and guys like Travis Rice and Chad Otterstrom and those guys won the contest that day, rocking my 99-cent beanie on their head with my last name written on it. So that was my first business, Neff. We ended up starting in the surf skate snow industry and crossed over kind of into lifestyle, doing deals with like Snoop and Deadmau5 and Wiz Khalifa, Kevin Durant, and kind of went a little wider into youth culture. So I ended up selling Neff about 5 years ago now. So I sold majority of the company to private equity. And then we sold the company again a couple years ago to more of a strategic. So that was kind of the first hurrah. And then throughout that time, I was always kind of advising with other companies that I would, was never really talking about. So like Sony Electronics, I was their youth consultant for a couple years and would always riff down at their San Diego corporate office and talk about trends and what the youth are into and what colorways are popping and who's the next artist. What does Taylor Swift mean at Target? What is, those kind of things, which was cool, and working on unique projects for them. Also, interestingly enough, Target reached out to me. It was when their whole kids business was Shaun White, Massimo, and Cherokee. And at that time, they were looking to kind of flip up the game. So I was hired by Target to help them redo their whole kids business, which was a fun, random, consulting gig. Got, working with their team to kind of relook what it means to do more relevant clothing, work with social media influencers, and flip that. So that was cool. I had the very fortunate phone call, maybe it's about 7 years ago now, that at the time I got a phone call about a sunscreen brand that needed some capital. And I ended up funding and writing a check at that time. Became the second largest shareholder of Sunbum, which recently just sold to SC Johnson. So that was good. And then, started a couple other things on the side. For me, we started this merch company called Mad Merch. So we do, like, currently James Charles, we do like his sister's brand, Liza Koshy, Lily Singh, Emma Chamberlain, kind of all the biggest YouTubers that were kind of friends of mine. And that was a very unique model in the apparel space. You've got these people that literally have built these massive followings, and they have such an engaged fan base, and you'll drop a colorway of a hoodie and you'll just watch how you hit the go button and literally 600,000 people are shopping on the Shopify site within minutes. It's incredible. So that's been a cool model. And then a lot of my time over the past couple years has been focused around a new company that I'm doing called Beach House. So Beach House, which I'll kind of parlay into the e-commerce thing. Beach House it's basically a brand incubator. The company had actually started a couple years before I met them, and at the time they were just doing kind of private label brands with Target. So they had built kind of a cool little infrastructure where they can, find white space with Target and build brands from A to Z in-house. So, and I was at the time where I just sold Neff, had a handful of things going, but I wanted to get back into the grind of just creating something new. I mean, that's what I love. I just love the ideation phase. I love the idea of, this product doesn't exist today. I think this is a good product. It always starts with a great product. How can we, make this meaningful? How can we make something that people want to buy? And that's really what I love. So about 2 years ago, Target and some other different people introduced me to Beach House. And at that time, I loved kind of their infrastructure. And, I came in, became a major shareholder at Beach House with this new idea of, cool, Shaun's going to join. He's going to create and ideate kind of the brands for us. We've got this infrastructure that's going to operate. And, the last 2 years I've just spent, we've launched 4 businesses in the past, call it 10 months. And it's just been an incredible journey just to see, and even stuff that, I've learned from working at, doing Neff and working with talent and how to pick the right talent, who's sticky, who's, there's so many personalities, there's so many YouTubers, there's so many celebrities, and in my opinion, there's like a handful that can actually really build a business. So I kind of spent my last, 18 months to 2 years really ideating these brands, or working with relevant people that I felt are meaningful in today's market. And the 4 brands we have launched at Beach House the first one was Base. So it's a travel brand with Shay Mitchell. So Shay Mitchell was like on Pretty Little Liars. She's got, she's well known. She's not the biggest celebrity in the world, but she's got a massive fan base. And I was riffing with Shay and looking at a bunch of different opportunities and what path to go down. And, we kind of came up with this idea that she'd already authentically been doing Shaycations. So she had already been traveling the world. She had an authentic, fan base, and people knew that Shay was known for traveling, going to exotic places all across the world. So the idea, and after meeting with Shay, it was, oh my gosh, like Shay, yes, we should start a travel brand. So basically, Base is kind of a millennial travel business that we started, and it's been, I think, up and operating for about 10 months now. And it's doing incredibly well. And we're doing, our D2C business is pretty incredible, doing well over $1 million a month, every month. And we have the #1 bag on Revolve, and then the top suitcase collection at Nordstrom. So that model is keeping it very tight and building with Shay. The second business was a company called Moon. So for me, I like to walk around stores and check out aisles and just hang out there like I'm a weirdo and like really see what's missing on the shelf. And for me, it was oral care was like the ugliest aisle at the store. I just thought it was disgusting. It was like the same big blue and green bottles, and it was the red, white, and blue paste, and I was just like, this, I feel like there needs to be a new idea here. So the original idea, we launched Moon. So Moon is an oral care company, and it really was, let's make something that looks beautiful on your shelf, right? It was, if your friends are coming over, toothpaste is one of the ugliest things on your counter. It's always something you hide. So, and even like my wife, who has like a Chanel, perfume there, I'm like, let's make something that looks good that can sit right next to that Chanel perfume bottle. So we launched Moon, and we actually locked in, Ulta. I mean, we're doing a lot of business with Ulta and D2C, and it's important to, kind of, state, it's an e-commerce thing, that each one of our Beach House brands has launched on D2C only. So that's kind of been our plan. Let's launch on direct-to-consumer. Let's own the customer experience. Let's collect emails, and let's do all we can, because you can't control what your brand looks and feels like on someone else's website. Can't control what it looks like at retail. So your website is ridiculously important, because that's the one place where you can own your brand experience. So we launch every brand, direct to consumer first. We own it, we message it. So the first eyeballs on the brand is what, we want people to see. And then, so Moon, we locked in Ulta, we locked in Target to the chain, and then we created this whitening pen. And it's just like an on-the-go teeth whitener. And then, a lot of, and you'll see our model at Beach House is we lock it in with a massive personality to be our partner. So at that time, I was like, okay, we've got this on-the-go whitening pen. There's no one more on the go than the biggest supermodel in the world, Kendall Jenner. So I had known Kendall for a while. I hit her, went to her house, showed her Moon, and she loved it. So did a deal with Kendall, or with Chris, and we locked in a deal with Kendall. She has equity in the business, just like Shay. Shay has a chunk of the business. She's motivated, and we share the same goal. Let's build this company, and we have to be aligned. We're gonna do our part, you do your part. It's not just take a photo and post some stuff on Instagram, we gotta build. So that was the first two. We just launched one about, I think 30 days ago now, which has been cray-cray. It's called Florence. So it's Millie Bobby Brown's beauty business. And I have never seen a company in my life of brand building do what that thing has done in 25 days. Our Instagram now, I think we're at 980,000 followers in 3 weeks. Each photo gets from 100,000 to 500,000 likes. It's incredible. It's been one of the fastest. I was just with the Instagram team out in New York, and it's one of the fastest engaged brands they've ever seen on Instagram for the first month, which was cool. But it goes back again to the right idea and the right person. I met Millie when she was 13. Now she's 15, right? So pretty incredible, but she was just different, right? She was unique. She is unique. She's the youngest girl to be on the Times 100 list. She's a UNICEF ambassador, right? She has all of these accolades that there's not another Millie Bobby Brown out there. Like, we knew there was an opportunity to build a Gen Z beauty brand and really talk to a young demo. And the only way you do that is with someone that's actually young. And that was kind of the thought process there. And then we just launched 3 weeks ago another brand called Pattern, which it's a hair brand with Tracy Ellis Ross. So once again, Tracy has a great audience. She's massively engaged with her fan base, the market we're after, which is curly, coily hair. That's where she's been an expert for the past, 30 years. So really at Beach House, what we're trying to do, especially from an e-commerce side, and for me, it's not just e-commerce, it's what are you doing to create and entice a customer to actually buy something, right? And I think online's a little bit different from retail, but in the end, it's still, wallet market share, right, from a customer. So for us, it's really, it sounds like, whoa, 4 brands in 11 months, right? But to get to those 4 brands, to lock in those 4 partners, I probably sat in front of 100 different talent and some of the biggest talent in the world. A handful of them are the top 4 or 5 people on Instagram that have hundreds, million plus followers. But there's just kind of a formula, at least that I'm intrigued about, which is kind of parlaying into Beach House, which is, it starts with killer product. We want to lock in someone that's authentic to it, and we want to build a compelling brand story and really leverage the power of this talent. And because like in any brand, right, whatever brands that we're all a part of in this room, it goes back to, it's no different than like, how Nike blew up, or, all of, what Pepsi does every time at the halftime show. So I'm just a massive believer of trying to find someone that's so relevant and so brand perfect for your brand that can help elevate, which all of us has done, right? It's from surfers to skaters to snowboarders to influencers. And I think the key for us has been really locking in, people that we feel and can match to a compelling product space that we think is ripe for and need something new and different. So that's kind of where I guess my journey's been, and the whole brand building vibe nowadays is very unique, right? Because there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of choices, but I think picking the critical decisions, being very smart, less is more. I mean, even for some of our brands, we've obviously launched these with massive people, right? A Kendall Jenner, a Millie Bobby Brown, and it's performing tremendously well. And as we continue to grow, we'll work with even on some of those brands, we still work with macro influencers and micro influencers, and we let them tell authentic stories. So I guess for me, and the way we're structured, we have a digital team that's kind of a shared service that's across all of our Beach House brands, right? And they're the experts. They're the ones hacking stuff every single day. They're creating content every day. They're testing it. They're doing the minimal spend. They're, making 5 different content, and they're throwing it out there. And then 24 hours later, they're all sitting there and going through, okay, how did this perform? Why did this not perform? And we've learned, like for Base and Shay Mitchell, every time that she has a base bag and it's over her shoulder, it converts better than anything else we can do, right? So we've tested everything from it not on her shoulder, from, with it on her counter, with it, she's taking a picture of her jumping on this plane to go, fly to Europe. So I think the key in really kind of and for us, our brands at this stage, it's not really user acquisition. It's more, let's create compelling content. Let's leverage some of the biggest people in the world that are part owners of our company and have them drive an authentic, communicative story and message that people go, oh, that's rad. Or, whoa, Shay does travel. Oh, Kendall Jenner does have good teeth. And she was, when she was at the Met, it was all planned out. It was like Kendall did her thing before the Met Gala, and then we had Gigi Hadid do a thing on her Instagram that said, getting ready for the Met, thanks Kenny, and then she's hitting her pen, right? So that's kind of stuff that, dreams are made of, right? I mean, it's the Met, it's the biggest event of the year in fashion, and you've got Kendall and Jenner and Gigi Hadid endorsing your product in an authentic way. We didn't pay Gigi. We didn't, but it's all highly, articulated with the plan. So I think, in today's world of brand building, I think you just have to create content and create product that people want to see. And there's all walks of life of relevancy, right? I think even for Neff back in the day, I loved our surf skate snow athletes, and that was like the core of their brand. That was where I started giving beanies away to pro, snowboarders. But, when we got into Zoomies and some of those bigger chains that really drove our business, it was all about Snoop and Wiz and kind of those bigger, it's just a different, fan base, right? And there's just a different market size. So me at a very young age, and even knowing that it's all about eyeballs, I was very, and you had to do it pretty carefully. And Neff was funky because it was birthed in snow. Then we had a skate surf team, but then we were kind of funky. We're never trying to be too cool. But it was like, we were just kind of this fun brand doing different things. And our touch points were so massive, right? And even down to, I remember back in the day, one of our first collabs, like because now there's a formula through social media, and there's a bit of a formula on how you should launch things. How many times do you post? At what time? There's all of that stuff, which it was funny because Instagram said, I asked we were with their whole executive team a couple weeks ago, and they said there's actually no data that says no matter what time you post or whatever you do makes a difference, right? But then you get all these agencies saying, oh, you got to post at this time. And, 10 a.m. in the morning is the prime time for the eyeballs. But it's funny, Instagram's like, we don't see any research that shows that, which was kind of random. But with all of that, I think, back to the story of Snoop, right? It's just changed. I remember our first big collab with Snoop. Had a meeting with Snoop. He was about to perform 3 days later with Katy Perry on the VMAs. So like back then, the VMAs was like the heavy hitting, right, spot for all the younger teenage kids and college kids. So it's just such a strange how the world's changed, but it's the same principle. It was like, hey, Snoop, you're going to be on stage. Let's collab. Let's make a Neff shirt with the big dog on it. We'll go sell it at this retailer. I'll go get $1 million buy commitment, and we'll tell them you're going to be wearing this shirt for the next 6 months. We're going to create some collaborations with you, and let's go. And that was like one of the first times that, back then anyone really locked into this big talent for this big event, and it actually worked, right? And then for Neff, you saw how when Wiz dropped an album, or deadmau5, before he spun at the Grammys, I knew he was popping in Europe. We did a deal with him. We did this Neff Mouse collection, and I think, we probably did $10 million, $15 million with that little collaboration with deadmau5, which was awesome, right? But so my model has always been like create, compelling product and tying it up with someone that's relevant, that has, whatever it is, a fan base and a reach of people that, has some type of pull over the consumer. So, so from a digital side, I think there's a lot of things you can do to create people to come on your website or to purchase a product. But in my opinion, the great thing about the world today is, I was sitting with one of the biggest artists in the world, and we were talking about, we should buy that like old skate brand. I won't say the name, but it's like a brand that is probably tiny now, right? And had its heyday like 20 years ago. And literally it's like, whoa, if you get behind it and we do this together, it would be a $100 million business in a year, guaranteed, right? With the reach of this guy and what he means in fashion and youth culture, tying back to this old iconic logo. So what's cool about that idea today is, no matter where you are as a company and what you're doing, I love today and the ability to brand build, the ability to light stuff on fire, because stuff can pop quick, right? And you can really blow up stuff quick. And on the flip, though, the challenge is staying power, right? There's so many brands that launch every single day. There's a gazillion new brands, a gazillion new products. Every Instagram, person that has over 1 million followers thinks they should be an entrepreneur, right? So it's a very crowded world. So I think you got to be careful. But I think, an audience like this, there's such a rad, at least the idea to get up, tomorrow and think outside the box and take risk. It's rad that we live in a world that we can actually do that and literally, hit the right collab or hit the right thing where literally you can go, oh my gosh, and we've seen it with our beach house brands. It's when you lock in the right talent with the right product, numbers that I've been excited about, or part of big brands that have sold for a lot of money, our 30-day revenue has been bigger than 6 years in business with some of the most powerful brands in the industry and for consumers, which is crazy.
All right, so you're doing everything the right way. It's awesome to see.
No, I'm not.
You're going into more products. Which consumer market would you recommend? It sounds like you're going after the beauty market now.
Yeah, I like the beauty market for a handful of reasons. It's very crowded, but the multiples are nice. I think, beauty market is kind of a focus for Beach House. Base is travel, and it's a little outside the bucket, but oral care, Florence, and hair, it's in that beauty spectrum. I like that market because, it's a need, right? It's a product that actually, when I was slanging Neff beanies, it's like, does someone really need a Neff beanie? It might, be no different than the beanie you can get at the gas station. We've created some cool vibe, which is good, but, it's cold outside. You can wear a sweat, right? But whereas if you lock in the right beauty regimen and you can really attract the right customer and have someone really like your product, they stay, right? And I think for us, the key, because I do my little brand, ideate the brands, lock in the talent, do my thing, relationships with retailers. But the most important thing that I've learned is it's obviously the team, right? It's who's on your
Yep.
team, and we've done a really good job at Beach House that we've hired, like the girl running, lady, running our moon business, right? She ran oral care at Target for 13 years. She ran $1 billion oral care business. She knows the difference between if it has an ADA stamp on it or not. What does that mean for the customer? What does fluoride mean compared to this? So I think it's really important, regardless of what you're doing, you're only as good as your team,
Yeah.
right? And the hardest thing in any business is finding good people.
Yep.
But yeah, so beauty's good, but I've got a meal replacement company that I'm launching in January and Anheuser-Busch is my partner. So Anheuser-Busch is running the back end because they know a lot more than me about beverage, but I'm doing what I do. So, for me, it's not really one industry. Like, I look at anything and I'm like,
Awesome.
I should
And then
start
one more
making
question.
plans.
You say you give these celebrities, influencers equity. Like, what percentage would you recommend? How much do you give up?
Yeah, it's all different, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless you're a Kendall Jenner or Millie Bobby Brown,
Yeah.
You probably don't need to give equity to any of them. I would, from an equity standpoint, I think it's got to be someone that's game changing, right? Like,
Yeah.
tip top, just massive, right? So that would be my recommendation is if you're going to start a company with a personality, and look, it's all different scales, right? But like we're just trying to build, $75 to $100 million businesses in 18 to 24 months, right? And by doing that, you got to get the right big heavy hitters, and the heavy hitters really want skin in the game, and they want to make a couple $100 million because they can go out and get a $40 million beauty deal. So you have to come up with something that's more enticing. That getting $40 million looks like a bad idea.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Shaun.
You described your formula as being killer product plus authentic influencer plus a compelling brand story. I'm just wondering where user-generated content and kind of focusing on the customer story, making the customer the hero, where does that fall in that formula? And a lot of the companies you talk about are very aspirational. So does the customer have a voice in that?
Yeah, I think it's different per brand, right? Like one of the newest things that we're starting, some of these brands are fairly new, but like Florence, right, with Millie. Like our go-to-market strategy was, so we sat down with her, and for 6 weeks before we launched the business, there was a massive plan. It was literally like, mapped out per day, like 5 weeks before. I'm gonna tell my fans that I'm thinking about maybe starting a business. And then even down to the color reveal, like she popped balloons and purple came out. And that was, hey, everyone, this is the thing. And then it was guessing, hey, do you think it's in beauty? Do you think it's in peril? So I think we did a really good job with Florence. We literally spent, before we revealed what the brand is, she spent 6 weeks every day talking to 30 million people, literally telling them that something's coming. So by the time it was insane. Like, even on our, I've been tied in on some of her like little DM group chat things. And even before we launched, I was like tied into like 50 DMs that every time I turned on Instagram, I would be seeing 1,000 different things. Like, oh my gosh, Shaun's on. Oh, is he with Millie? Oh, and I'm just like, this is insane, right? We didn't even launch the brand. So I think we did a really good job of communicating to her audience that something's coming, and we let them choose certain things. Like one of the new things we're doing is she just went out to the fan base and said, hey guys, love you. What are some of the products that you feel are missing, right? And so we actively reached out to her fan base, and it was crazy. I can't remember how many, but it was within 24 hours, I think we got over 70,000 request of product. So for us, that engagement and that, is something that's very important, right? Because I think there's other big beauty brands where it's more, look at me and you should want to buy this. Whereas we're very opposite, I think, in a lot of the brands we do. We want to bring in the community. It's like Tracy Ellis Ross has done an incredible job saying, this is my curly hair. What's yours? Try this. Does it work? Let us know feedback. So I think it's important to, definitely let the consumer feel like you care about them, that they're a part of the brand. And there's a fine balance. You still want Tracy Ellis Ross to be the important person in the business that's telling you why you should try this, but in a humble way of saying, we don't know everything, so please help us if you have an idea.
What's your exit strategy with all these brands that you guys are developing over at Beach House? And then how do you guys manage your growth financially?
Yeah. So exit strategy, it's more like we know if we build an incredible brand that is having high growth, A, it's good to keep riding that train, or B, it might be intriguing to someone. So I don't think there's like we need to get these brands, in the next year and a half, get it to X, then try to sell it. I think the mentality, now that I've been a part of a handful of exits, I think if you worry about the exit, you're kind of missing the boat. I think for us, it's more, let's do all we can to strike while the iron's hot, to grow as fast as we can, to be smart. And it's managing distribution, right? It's like, even with Neff, there was so many years where, we stayed out of the mall. And then we finally went into the mall. And then we chose one mall retailer. And we kept saying no to another one for 2 or 3 years, right? So I think it's just important to understand whether it's for your own brand and where you want to take it, or someone potentially acquiring it. The less distribution and the higher revenue you can get, the better you are on both sides. And then funding it, that's been crazy. Initially, it's all been kind of self-funded at Beach House. We had some money come in from outside, then we just recapped that over the past month or two. We've got a killer relationship for Beach House with Bank of America. So they see what we're doing, they're excited about it, and they're really getting behind us. We have a killer ABL in place with them, and working very close with our distributors, very close with our retailers, and kind of trying to manage all we can to get the best terms, the best payment, to kind of manage that. And then, we'll see. A couple of these are, a couple of our brands, even right now, if you go to Ulta across the country, Florence and Pattern are literally dust. There's nothing on the shelf. And Pattern, they gave us a 22-week runway, and we went through 16 weeks of inventory the first week. It was their fastest selling hair brand they've ever had, and it's like the biggest hair supplier in America, which was amazing. And then same with Florence. We literally built out our inventory with numbers from Ulta comparing us to the ColourPops and Max of the world, kind of some of the bigger, more popular brands for them. And same thing, we're chasing right now. We just pulled what we thought our inventory needs were through all of Q1, and we're now air flighting those in and getting it all ready for Christmas, just of how fast it's sold. So we're constantly, that's a big question internally that our CFO and president are on every single day. And there's several ways. There's mezz debt options out there. There's a lot of, we're blessed to have a handful of big strategics and a lot of venture funds talking to us right now. So we'll see what we do. But the more you can keep, can control over your ship, the better you are. So that's kind of our goal. We'll see.
I mean, are you as entertained as I am by the fact that you founded a brand with Chad Otterstrom, and now it's a brand with Kendall Jenner? Because there seems to be like a Rob Dyrdek-ish aspect to you. I mean, a lot of us grew up with Rob Dyrdek and with you. So to see you in snowboarding while it was happening, like we might be roughly the same age, and then to see that you actively thought so much bigger than the industry that we're all involved in, like what kept you from just relying on your success in surf, skate, snow and staying in this space? Like, how did you, like what went off that made you think so much more enormous, on such bigger of a scale?
Yeah, I think even starting in the industry, this industry, you know, I loved it, right? Because there was so much passion. I mean, I grew up snowboarding, surfing, right? So I think even having Neff, right? And we were only maybe 3 or 4 years into it, right? And for me, I just always knew, I'm like, cool, like I love the surf, skate, snow industry. I love the retailer environment. I love the community. But even in those early stages of Neff, like, yes, it was amazing to lock in some of the biggest athletes in the world, right? And work with them and see what that power was. But my microphone's getting crazy. But even at that stage, I was like, the first deal I did with like Snoop, right? I was just like, whoa. Like I was just chilling. I think I was like 23 or 24, and I was like, yo, dude, I was like 6 years ago just so stoked to like listen to your CD. This is like fire. I'm hanging out with you. What up, Snoop? Right? So it was just such a like surreal thing. And then it was like, whoa, I just did a deal with Snoop. And then, whoa, we just sold a lot of product, right? Being on the MTV. So I think it was some of those early hits that I just saw the difference of like, you know, hey, we showed up with our surf team at this surf event, and that was amazing. We had 300 or 400 kids there, but then it's like, whoa, we just showed up with Wiz Khalifa at this mall in Colorado, and there was 3,000 kids there. So I think that was like a big difference in my head. I was just going, whoa, like the reach is a lot different, right? And the fan base. And then now it's like, you know, for me, I just love scale. I love the idea of building something and consuming it. And I think that's what excites me every day, right? Like being part of things. And none of them are better than the other, but like when Neff was at its peak, there was 2 or 3 years where I could not leave my house without seeing my last name, whether I was dropping my kids off at school, doing this, going to the mall. There was just Neff beanies and shirts like everywhere I went. And then it was like the last several years to be at any hotel or be in Hawaii and see people using Sunbum and just being like, whoa, that's amazing. And then, you know, so for me, I really love the idea of just seeing what you've created being consumed and people loving that. And I think, you know, just the quicker way to get to a much bigger market is with someone that has the power that can reach that world very quickly. So, but, you know, like I look at what like Catch Surf is doing. I was actually with, you know, Kalani a couple days ago, and I love what they're doing in the surf market, right? It's just, it's relevancy, it's fun. Like Kalani's got such a killer like social media game, right? It's not like just traditional surf. It's like, yo, I'm gonna go out there and jump on this Catch surfboard. I'm gonna like do, you know, 28, you know, 360s, and it's just a rad thing, right? So he's still got that traditional core like surf raw, but he's also like, little 12-year-old kids are like, that kid's rad, he's on a hot pink board, he's funny. So I think, you know, it's not that one industry's better than the other, or bigger or smaller. I think no matter what you're doing, I think it's just important to look at how you're messaging, right? And what you're doing. And even if you are one of the bigger OG surf skate snow brands, I think there's a lot of innovation that can still happen in a relevant way that you're not offending kind of that core surf, skate, snow market, but still doing something that resonates with like a kid that's 16 that lives in Nebraska that's never been to the ocean, right? And that's what I would, if I was, running some big surf brand right now, I'd be like, how are we going to do something that's rad, that ties into relevancy? And surfing can be a lot of things. Like, there's the surf vibe, and if I'm never going to be on a board, I mean, that's why we at Neff, which is crazy, it was my funky little idea, which I think today we're still, I don't know how we're doing this, but it's the #1 selling short at Tilly's. It's our hot tub short. Because I'm going, cool, 5-way, 6-ply, 13-way stretch. That's all cool. But kids that I know don't give a crap about that unless you're like even me, I surf, and I'm like, I don't know the difference between 1, 6, and 9 stretch. But kids like the hot tub. Kids swim. So the amount of innovation that we have put into our hot tub shorts is this many dollars. And we're the #1 selling short still at Tilly's. I don't know. That's just where my mind thinks, right? And it was just the simple idea of cool, let's make swim trunks, but let's not, and we had big pro surfers, but let's call it a hot tub short and put rubber duckies on it and call it a day. And I think it worked. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on SMS marketing?
Yeah, I think it's smart. I know on us it was crazy. We did, I think it's through Florence, right? Because most everyone's on their phones,
Yeah.
right? And it was interesting. It was absurd how many emails we collected, and then we did an SMS, campaign that Millie led. And the conversion rate was incredible. Because as you can imagine, capturing an email, which is still on the phone, but everyone's, the SMS game, texting, right? The whole, we did a little campaign with Millie where she kind of led kind of a little group kind of chat text type thread about a new launch that she was doing. And the conversion rate was insane. So all I can say is from an early read of us getting into that, the read on the conversion on that was even much higher than email or, but it was a very targeted, smaller group that we did it. So it worked for us a couple weeks ago.
Good to know.
But I'm not an SMX expert. Jake, are you?
He shook his head no.
All right, because he's more techie than I am.
All right, everybody, let's give it up for Shaun Neff.